All right, welcome. It's Ringside Report. I'm Dave Simon. Fred Garcia's here. AJ DeLesio's here. We got Marco Muscles behind the camera right now. Be careful there, Marco
Paparazzi.
Muscles. Don't shake the camera up. We got a lot going on here tonight. We got a lot of MMA to talk about. Marco's dancing for some reason. UFC 238 is this Saturday night in Chicago. The main event, Marlon Moraes taking on Henry Cejudo for the UFC Bantamweight Championship. The Bantamweight Championship that is vacant, right? Because TJ Dillashaw was the Bantamweight Champion, but he got popped for EPO. He was on a performance-enhancing drug of EPO.
Like, who isn't on the UFC?
And he was suspended for a couple of years. So now we need a new champion. Cejudo makes sense. He's a 125-pound champion. He beat Dillashaw when Dillashaw dropped down to 125. So Cejudo Moraes is the main event. Then you've got Valentina Shevchenko and Jessica Ai in the co-main event. But the real main event to me, and I don't know about you guys, but the big fight that I'm looking forward to, it's Tony Ferguson and Donald Cerrone, right?
Yes,
this is
sir.
the real main event of this card. This is a tremendous fight, and it could be a title fight at 155 pounds. Tony Ferguson is one of the best 155ers, unbeaten in years, right? The
7
last
years.
time he lost 7 years, AJ?
Yep.
Thank you for that.
When's the last time he fought, though?
October 2018 against Anthony Pettis. He had some personal issues that he went through, and apparently everything is good, or at least good enough to fight. And now Tony Ferguson is going to be fighting Donald Cerrone, who's on a roll himself. Cerrone's one of the best lightweights in the UFC, has been for years.
Look, I'm happy to see Tony Ferguson. It's great to see him back. I hope we get to see like the old Tony Ferguson that's on a great winning streak. But I'm not going to say like Cejudo is not the main event. Cejudo versus Moraes is a great fight. Cejudo could win his second title. I mean, I feel like Cejudo's not getting the love. Like, I've read this whole like take that, the real main event is Ferguson versus Cerrone, and it's an excellent fight.
But seriously,
I'll
Fred,
take
come on.
Cejudo fight.
No, Fred,
Oh,
seriously.
Whoa. Hold on, Fred.
Seriously.
Hold on. Give me a second here. You are more excited for the Cejudo Moraes fight than the Cerrone and Ferguson
It's
fight?
like saying I
Of
like
course.
liver. I mean,
You're
come
more
on, Fred.
excited for that fight. Why?
Of course, because Cejudo
I
goes
like
for his
liver.
second title. Like, look, Ferguson versus Cerrone is a nice, sexy fight. Cerrone, to me, is not a real contender. I'm sorry. Habib. There's a lot of guys, Poirier, even Conor is before Cerrone. Like, Cerrone would have to beat Ferguson for me to consider him a contender. So it's a great fight. I'm just saying Cejudo going for a second title puts his name out there as pound for pound one of the best. I mean, come on.
Let me just read you a list of names that Donald Cerrone has defeated in his career, okay? Former UFC champion Eddie Alvarez. Former UFC champion Benson Henderson. One of the top UFC fighters, Edson Barbosa, Jim Miller, John McDessie, Patrick Cote, Matt Brown, and then most recently, Mike Perry, Alexander Hernandez, and in his last fight, very impressively, Ally Quinta.
Nice wins, but the division is very deep. I'm just saying there's a lot of guys, and I feel Cejudo, I'm going to repeat his name often, Cejudo here is going for history. Like, not many guys have won 2 titles in 2 different weight classes.
Fred, I'll agree.
Listen,
I'll agree with Fred on one thing. When Cejudo's fighting, it's going to be like sometimes it's cringe-worthy. You don't know what's going to happen, but he makes the fights exciting. I'll give that. This will be an exciting fight,
sure,
but it's not going to be, in my opinion. It's
I'm
like
saying
I said,
there's
it's
history
liver.
to it. There's history
There
to it,
is
which
history,
Ferguson
but-
versus Cerrone is a nice, sexy fight.
No, man,
Don't get me wrong.
Ferguson
I love
was in the same column as Khabib, you know, and McGregor. These were names that were mentioned, so it's hard to say
Exactly.
that Cejudo is going to be like the main event, which he is. But you know what? He'll make a good fight. There's no doubt about it. But he's not Ferguson.
Exactly.
He's not, Cerrone, who's going to come out and
He's
they're going to
better
light
than
it up
Cerrone.
like the Montreal fireworks, which is going to be happening in a couple of weeks from now.
Okay.
Cha-cha-ching, boom,
So,
boom.
so before you trail
Boom.
off about fireworks and just kind of do your AJ thing, I wanna stay on page because I want to agree with you, so I don't want to seem too ridiculous when I'm doing that, right?
Tell me.
Yeah, look who's on your side.
I know, it's really odd. Usually it's Fred and I against AJ
No, usually
for
it's
some
me
reason.
and Fred. What are you talking about? Usually it's me and Fred.
What do you think, Fred?
I feel I'm closer to Dave.
What? That's not,
No offense.
Muscles Marco, throw in your comment.
Okay, so, but here, AJ, I'm in 100% agreement with you.
It's about
Donald
time.
Cerrone was talked about as potentially fighting Conor McGregor next. Okay?
Yeah.
Tony Ferguson.
As a rebound fight.
Tony Ferguson was a guy who almost fought Khabib a couple of times, hasn't really been defeated. In my mind, is the lightweight champion of the world. Now, he may not be recognized as a lightweight champion, but until you beat Tony Ferguson, I don't think Khabib could really be recognized as the undisputed lightweight champion. Tony Ferguson has been out there for years. This guy has been out there, like AJ said.
I mean, if
Like
you don't...
AJ said, because AJ's always right.
AJ's right in this instance. For 7 years, beating all the top guys and just smashing through people, being a very exciting fighter, and being one of these guys that, again, is in the discussion for the Khabib or the Conor show.
I mean,
And
nobody
we know-
has defeated Khabib, so you can't call Tony Ferguson the champ without him having
Dave,
No,
like
but
the
you
same
can't-
argument
you
could be
can't
made.
No, but you can make a dispute. You can put Khabib's championship in dispute because he's still not defeated Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson was crowned a UFC champion before Khabib was. Ferguson was crowned an interim champion. You know, Ferguson had to drop out because he was hurt. And
Look,
they took his interim championship away from him. But just because the UFC takes a title away from you doesn't mean you're not a champion anymore. This guy has won 11 straight fights in the
great
UFC lightweight division.
His
Tony
only loss-
Ferguson is the man.
His only loss,
and
Dave.
again, when you're part of that Conor McGregor show discussion, I think you're the main event. Like, when you're involved in the biggest show on earth, the biggest MMA spectacle, you're the main event. You're the main focus of the show. And I'm sorry, Donald Cerrone and Tony Ferguson are way bigger names and still very relevant to their division compared to, like, Marlon Moraes, who's
not a bad fighter, by the
look,
way.
Henry Cejudo's a gold medalist in wrestling. We're going to talk about Henry Cejudo. We're going to break that fight down.
Wait.
And you'll see how much respect I have for these guys. It's a tremendous
Dave.
fight. But let's not kid ourselves and pretend what the UFC is and isn't about. The UFC is about Conor McGregor and Khabib and all of that type of
Diaz
stuff.
and all the rest of the boys.
Nate Diaz, who's coming back this
Exactly.
summer. And Tony Ferguson is a big part of that puzzle, and he hasn't fought since October of 2018.
Look.
So his return fight is a major deal. And to me, the fact that it's third from main event, you know, that's the fight I want to see. I'm not mad at that, but, like, it's a letdown after that for the viewer. Once you watch the fight you want to see in Cerrone and Ferguson, do you want to stay awake for Jessica I and Shevchenko, or are you going to fall asleep, Fred? Like, it's going to be late. You know what I mean? You're going to fall asleep.
Yeah,
you're
but that's-
saying this, Fred, but I know you and what you're going to do. You're going to
Okay.
watch Ferguson and Cerrone, and you'll watch the other fights the next
I
morning.
might not even get to Cerrone.
Yeah,
and
you're gonna have
Ferguson.
your,
I might,
you're
I
gonna
might
have your
watch
cup
it
of
all.
tea and you're gonna go to bed. I
watch
know
it
that.
in the morning, waking and baking. That's the best way
You
to
can't
watch
do
it.
that, Fred. You gotta watch
Yeah.
it live, like me and
No,
me and Dave.
no.
Yeah,
and
we watch
Muscles.
it live.
No,
Listen,
best way to watch sports is in the morning with a good coffee.
Oof, not
But
at all.
I'm
You
just
kidding?
saying, like,
I'm having my Captain
Cejudo
Crunch at
has
that
his
point.
spot in the main event.
For Fruit
He's
Loops.
going for a second title. Of course, like, Ferguson Cerrone is a very sexy fight, incredible fight,
Easy there, Fred.
very important fight. I'll give you all that. I'm just saying, Cejudo going for his second title has its place as main event.
Yeah, okay.
But
look,
watch it all.
Look, it's a championship fight, and I get why it's in the main event, and it's cool. I'm just saying, if this card were headlined by Tony Ferguson and Donald Cerrone,
it'd have more punch.
it would probably draw better.
Absolutely.
Like, if these were the guys on the poster, because
I
nobody's
think
really...
we're talking minor numbers.
But,
either
like,
way,
I don't know,
we're
man.
not talking about very much.
If
a
we were
difference.
getting a 5-round fight between Ferguson and Cerrone,
If you tell
If
me
these
Conor
guys were on the
McGregor's
poster-
is going to be cage side, like, and that's part of the promotion, maybe. You
Yeah,
know,
but
like,
bottom line-
special
But-
guest referee,
But Dave,
Conor
Dave,
McGregor.
Bottom line-
Conor McGregor could fight the winner of this fight.
Absolutely.
And if you have a fight where Conor McGregor could legitimately fight the winner, how is that third for main event? Like, it's such a big deal.
but listen to
the
me here.
UFC, it's Ultimate Fighting Conor. Like, we all know what it stands
Look,
for.
I think Conor, if anybody's going to fight Conor, it's going to be off of the Poirier and Khabib fight. That's where Conor is going to be fighting next. I'll tell you one thing, Dave.
Maybe.
You know what? You can say what you want. I mean, Ferguson
I
is
think
the man.
Ferguson would
A lot
be
of
too
people- a lot
dangerous
of
for
people are-
Conor. Cerrone makes sense because he's the type of fighter that would like bring a style that Conor likes.
You just said Ferguson's too dangerous for Conor
Yes, I did.
McGregor,
Yes, I did.
and he's not in the main event?
Well, I'm saying he's too dangerous without a big enough reward.
This is
Whereas
Dr. Phil moment.
Habib is just as dangerous, maybe more dangerous, but the reward is huge. That rematch with Habib is so much more money. Like Conor versus Ferguson is good money because anything Conor does is good money. I'm just saying, like, the risk reward. I would go for the Habib
Fred,
fight. I would
two
go for the
things.
winner of Habib Poirier.
Fred, two things here. Listen to me here. I've been trying to throw this in for a while before I forget.
Go, my friend.
Number one, Ferguson's only loss is to tripping over a cable. So he lost to a cable that popped out his knee, which gave him that absence, which he probably would have been champ at this point if he didn't lose to that cable. And number two,
You sure that's his only loss?
yeah, to the cable. Well, in the last little while. He lost to a
Well,
cable
yeah,
tripping over it.
exactly.
He did lose at some
And-
point.
and number
to
two-
Lost to Michael Johnson.
7 years ago.
7 years ago, he lost
All
to a
right,
cable.
just
couple
be
years ago.
accurate.
But listen
Michael
to
Johnson's the only guy to beat him in the UFC, and he's won like 13 fights in the UFC, including 11 in a row.
this. Michael
11
Johnson,
in a row,
yeah,
and
he
an
was-
interim UFC lightweight championship.
But Dave, I'm going to tell you this, and Fred, the UFC, it doesn't matter who's on the main card because again, we always go back to with the new ESPN deal. The UFC always wins. It doesn't matter who's on the main card. That's why they can afford to do this. If it was the old UFC with Fox, you definitely would have had Ferguson on that main card.
Maybe.
Now,
Well, he
they
is
don't
on the
need
main
that.
card.
I'm just saying
He's on the
that
main card, but he's not the main event.
I'm just
And
saying
that's the difference.
Usually for a pay-per-view, the main event is the fight that everybody wants to see. But I feel like the fight that everybody wants to see is the third for main event. Not that Moraes and Cejudo is a bad fight or Shevchenko and I is a bad fight. They're both
well,
good fights. But I think the fight that most people are tuning in for, probably that Tony Ferguson Donald Cerrone deal. Because let's not forget, Tony Ferguson's last fight was October 6, 2018, which was the co-main event of Khabib and Conor. Everybody that watched Khabib and Conor, which was everybody, saw
Everybody.
Tony Ferguson look amazing against Anthony Pettis right before. And everybody knew that Tony Ferguson was next in line to fight the winner of Conor and Khabib. And this is Tony's return fight.
and things are
Like,
looking good for him.
This
right?
is a big deal fight. And that's why I'm saying, like, you know, Cejudo Moraes is cool and all, but this is the return of El Kukui.
And El Kukui, I'll tell you one thing. The good thing about
Fred's
all
not
this,
feeling it.
Fred's not feeling the
I mean,
love.
I
That's
feel we're
okay.
making a big issue of nothing, and we shouldn't be that surprised
What?
because UFC always headlines with championship fights. So, I mean,
Okay.
you could, like,
I
yeah,
agree with
okay,
you.
maybe.
I don't think it's that much of a big deal. I don't think it really matters. I think really what we should be talking about is who wins between these two guys. Like,
Tony Ferguson.
I think
What?
Tony Ferguson wins. I would definitely pick Tony Ferguson. The odds makers have him as a slight favorite, though.
Slight,
minus
exactly.
140. Donald Cerrone plus 120. I think Tony Ferguson is better in all aspects of the game.
Except
I think he's tougher. Except what?
ring rust. He hasn't fought in a while, and that's the
hasn't
only thing.
fought in a
Because
while.
Cerrone
Not that
has fought.
far,
How many
actually.
times has he
I'm
fought up to
surprised.
this point? Like 17 times. I mean, this guy is fighting all the time, and that's the difference. He's ready, he's prepared, and this can be a big factor for Cerrone to win. I mean, Cerrone is
look.
always fighting.
Yeah, he's always fighting, and he's always been a guy that's always fighting, and he's always been a guy that's won a lot of these fights in the middle of the road, But then when he steps up to that main event, the top-level talent, he has faltered. He stepped up, and he fought Anthony Pettis and lost. He fought Nate Diaz and lost. He fought Rafael Dos Anjos, and he won. He won a bunch of fights in a row. Miles Jury, Benson Henderson, John McDessie. Then he lost to Dos Anjos. He's up and down.
But who doesn't lose to Dos Anjos? I mean, that's not an easy fight.
You know who doesn't lose to Dos Anjos? Tony Ferguson.
Oh, that's a good point.
There's a guy who doesn't lose to Dos Anjos. Like, Donald Cerrone is a great fighter. I just think that Tony Ferguson is an elite-level championship fighter that Cerrone isn't. I think that I see Tony Ferguson as better than Donald Cerrone in every aspect of MMA. It's not to say Cerrone is no good. It's just that Ferguson, I think, is better. The only question, I think, in my mind, and maybe why the odds are a little closer than they normally would be, is the fact that Ferguson has gone through these personal issues, right? Ferguson had these mental health issues that he was going through. He had some personal problems with his family. He seems to have got everything sorted, but we don't know what was going on with Tony, and people are wondering, well, like, what kind of Tony Ferguson shows up here, and what happened exactly with Tony, and does it have an effect on his performance in the octagon? I don't think it will. I really don't think it will.
You know
I think we're going to see the same Tony Ferguson that we saw in October, who beat up Anthony Pettis in vicious fashion and won by TKO. And we're going to see the same Tony Ferguson who I think is a world champion level fighter. And I think he could beat Khabib. I think Tony Ferguson, Khabib, would go in the favor of El Kukui. I think he's the uncrowned king. And we're going to see that again on Saturday night.
But on that note, just to let you know that his family was with him throughout this fight week. I mean, so on that note, I mean, it's going to be a lot.
It seems like he's got everything figured out.
Sure.
Or at least he's working through whatever issues he has.
Absolutely. Everybody goes through their ups and downs in life. I mean, we were a bit harsh on him too when he wasn't fighting or was it just me?
If anybody,
just you,
it could have been just me. But anyways, like, you know what?
You're typically the one that, goes overboard.
What? I don't go overboard.
I'm usually Team El Kukui. I've been a Tony Ferguson fan since.
Is Nick Diaz still in jail in your mind for, what was it again?
Right.
I forget what it was.
Nothing.
Wasn't that?
He gave him 25 years to life.
No, I didn't.
Night,
I think the lawyers called Dave, and I wasn't allowed to say that anymore.
I mean, I remember Tony Ferguson on The Ultimate Fighter. He was on Team Brock Lesnar. He wound up winning that season of The Ultimate Fighter. Tony Ferguson has been in the UFC for a long time. Tony Ferguson, that was in 2011. Like, this guy has been doing it in the UFC since 2011 and has only lost once.
I mean,
who does that? How many times has Donald Cerrone lost since 2011?
Look, he's a great fighter. I'm happy to see him. If he wins, if he wins
11 times. Dave.
If Tony Ferguson wins and doesn't get the winner of Khabib Poirier, that would be a travesty. You see, that's what we should be saying, is that if Tony Ferguson wins and Conor McGregor gets the winner of Poirier versus Khabib, that's a travesty.
I agree. I think that it should be the winner of this fight getting the winner of Poirier and Khabib, no matter what.
Well, I mean, if Cerrone wins, there's an argument that Conor could get it before Cerrone. Like, I'm not that high on Cerrone.
Right, but if they don't give it to Ferguson after this,
it's pretty sad. It is pretty sad.
Are we all in agreement that Ferguson is winning? You seem to be on Team Cerrone.
No, I'm not. Look, I'm gonna say this. It's gonna be a very close fight. It's gonna be like they're two tough fighters, man. It's gonna go the distance. But, I mean, I always say that ring rust is a factor. But on this note, because it's Tony Ferguson, and you were right about one thing. Tony Ferguson was probably the guy to beat Khabib.
I'm still not hearing a pick.
I'm going with Ferguson on this.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, AJ.
His morale's there and everything.
Did we all go with Gustafsson last weekend?
Woo.
Yep.
We didn't do well there.
You saw that Anthony Smith hand? He broke his hand.
Yeah,
that looked like a nasty break.
Yeah. Wound up beating
guy.
Gustafsson last weekend.
Look, it's not that we were wrong. I mean, he was fighting a good fight.
We'll talk about Gustafsson in a little bit.
AJ's never wrong.
I want to continue this UFC 238 preview, and then we'll get to Gustafsson and whether or not he's retired after that loss to Anthony Smith. But there's some other fights on this card that I am excited about. The co-main event, Valentina Shevchenko. She is the UFC women's flyweight champion. This is her first title defense since beating Joanna Jędrzejczyk to win the title. And she'll be defending against Jessica Ai, who is riding a 3-fight win streak into this one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's a good fight for the women's flyweight championship. It's
Or is it a feed fight?
It's not a division that's... No, I don't think it's a feeder fight. I don't think Jessica Ai is being fed to Shevchenko. I think it just... she's next in line. She deserves a title shot. I think it's going to be a good fight.
Jessica Ai probably has a little size advantage.
Yeah, I'm not sure where this is going to go.
Because Jessica Ai used to fight at bantamweight basically before, so she's coming down a division. So maybe that's the part, but I'm going to go with Shevchenko also. I'm a fan of hers. She's a fun fighter to watch, great striking. I'll go with her winning. Probably decision.
She'll probably win because she's a gigantic favorite. I'm not really sure how this happened, but she's a minus 1250 favorite.
Ow.
Which makes sense. I mean, let's look
Jessica
at it this way.
Ai is a plus 800
But she's
underdog.
not the same level of fighter. Let's be honest,
That
guys.
is not something you see every day. That is crazy.
Look,
I mean, put a buck on Jessica Ai just because it's a fight and anything could happen, right?
anything could happen. But let's be honest. This is a feed
look,
fight,
last
in my
week in
opinion.
boxing.
Well, you're right, Anthony Joshua, man.
Yeah.
You never know.
You never know. And
Absolutely.
I don't see this as a easy fight for Shevchenko.
Well, to many they believe so. That's why the odds are so.
Well, yeah,
but
obviously
let me tell
AJ,
you,
but I don't see that, man.
You know what? There's
That's
not
weird.
that many people. There's not that many women in that division to give a strong competition. It's going to be a tough fight for Jessica Ai, and let's be honest. I mean, you could put your money down on Ai, and the return will be great, but
She probably
going to
won't
lose.
win.
Yeah,
Probably
exactly.
not. Yeah, I think we'd all go with Shevchenko. How about Cejudo and Moraes? It's kind of hard to go against Henry Cejudo right now, right? Moraes has done well. Looked good against Rafael Assunção in his last fight. Submitted him. Knocked out Jimmy Rivera. Knocked out Aljamain Sterling.
Sorry, I didn't listen. You said it's hard to go against?
Henry Cejudo.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say I'm going with Cejudo.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like a really close fight in the odds makers' eyes.
No,
but,
again, here you have Cejudo as a pretty heavy favorite.
Heavy favorite is Cejudo?
Oh, no, actually.
Not at all.
Oh, wow, that's crazy.
No, they're very close, Dave.
Yeah,
Very
Moraes.
close.
I was looking at a different
As close as
odd
my
here.
chinny chin chin.
Yeah, whoa, what's going on here? How come Moraes is a favorite? What's the deal?
Well, it's
he's
changing,
he's
right?
the bantamweight, so Cejudo's going up in weight, and
I guess,
Moraes is on a very good streak right now.
Yeah,
he
but-
defeated some very good fighters.
And most of his wins are by TKO, right? Or KO. So that's the difference where Cejudo wins mostly by decision. So that's what you got to look at this factor. If it's going to be heavy hands right off the bat,
like
by
Mo-
Moraes, it's going to be a tough fight for Cejudo.
Since 2012, Moraes has one loss, and it's to Assunção, which
Yeah.
he defeated in his last fight. So
Henry Cejudo won an Olympic gold medal with a broken freaking neck. Wait, no,
No,
that was
no.
Kurt Angle. That was Kurt Angle. Okay. Henry Cejudo won an Olympic gold medal and finished TJ Dillashaw in 32 seconds, and TJ Dillashaw was on EPO.
but I'll tell you what, Henry does have
Henry Cejudo
intensity.
was
So that
clean.
means drugs don't work, right, Dave?
No, it means Henry Cejudo is superhuman, and he can beat you even if you're on the top
Or maybe-
performance-enhancing drugs.
Maybe Olympic athletes are just better at beating the test. I'm just
Or maybe that fight was an early.
saying something.
Maybe that fight was an early stoppage.
yeah, that's
fight?
the AJ
No, I said that was.
That's
an
you?
Yeah, it was an
Okay.
early stoppage.
Yeah.
You don't remember that?
slightly.
It was a weird one.
Yeah, it was weird, but
I think
Cejudo
that
had
fight
it.
was an early stoppage, but still, I'm trying to cut a promo for Henry Cejudo here, make him look. He won an Olympic gold medal,
You saw the
and he
face-off
beat
today?
Dillashaw. No.
He went again with one of his costumes with the snake that he hits to the ground. Kind of.
Oh, he did the snake? Okay, yeah. Where I thought was real at one point. I'm like, Dave, I think this guy just killed a snake. And then it turned out that it was fake.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
know,
the
man.
snake is dead,
I'm a
or
little
it's not
bit
a real
surprised. I'm a little bit surprised that Marlon Moraes is the favorite in this fight.
I don't know.
Moraes is the favorite, minus 140. Cejudo plus 120. The underdog. I thought Cejudo would be favored. I'm going with Henry Cejudo in this fight.
Oh, yeah. Cejudo for sure.
It's
AJ?
gonna be close, but I'm gonna go with Cejudo on this as well.
Oh, okay. So we're all going with Henry Cejudo.
Let's hope it's not a Gus moment.
Even though Marlon Moraes is the
Don't get mad at us.
Is the favorite.
Look, it's
Yeah,
going to be
right?
close, right? It could go either or. Like I said, if the heavy hands come out, I mean, mind you, Cejudo had TKO on Dillashaw the last time, but you never know. It's gonna be like either a brawl or it's gonna be a grappling match, one of the two. And if it goes to the ground, Cejudo has it.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to go with Henry Cejudo. We're all going with Cejudo. We're all going with Shevchenko, and we're all going with Tony Ferguson here on the show.
That's the first time, actually.
Peter Yan
Peter
has been making a lot of noise. He's 12-1. He's undefeated in the UFC, and he's going to be taking on Jimmy Rivera, who's another one of the top bantamweights in the world. He's coming off a loss to Aljamain Sterling, but Jimmy Rivera is still a very good record in the UFC, a very tough fighter, and a really good test for Peter Yan. A lot of people have high hopes for this guy. He's minus 340, the favorite against Jimmy Rivera. That's going to be a fight to look out for sure. Peter Yan is a prospect, 26 years old, from Russia. And like I said, 12-1 now, undefeated in the UFC. With a win here, he might find himself in line for a title shot at 135 pounds. Tai Tuivasa, yeah? Peter Yan?
Look, it's a nice
Any
little
thoughts
fight.
on Yan?
Look,
Like you said, he's coming up. It's a nice little fight for the main card. I think this is like a card with 3 main fights. The Cerrone-Ferguson fight is very interesting, as interesting maybe more than the 2 main events. But after that, Rivera versus Yan is a nice way to start off the show, but it's probably the heavyweights also. I'm going to go with Peter Yan completing his ascension up the rankings.
It's going to start off the pay-per-view with Tai Tuivasa. Tuivasa coming off his first ever loss, a TKO to Junior Dos Santos. He takes on Blagoy Ivanov, who fought in March, beating Big Ben Rothwell. So Blagoy and Tuivasa, 2 big old heavyweights. That'll be fun.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting heavyweight fight. I mean,
Tuivasa, the
for
favorite,
sure.
minus 135.
Oh, he's the favorite on this.
Slight favorite.
Yeah,
like,
well,
you
that
know.
changed. I mean, that goes up and down. I mean, Ivanov, I mean, he's had a pretty interesting life. I mean, he went from, I think he beat Fedor in Sambo.
Sambo.
So I mean, this guy has a pretty stellar record in the grappling world. He's come through a lot of adversity. I mean, this guy got stabbed at one point, which took away his career for a bit of time. You know what? He's a tough guy. And if anybody's going to go down, it's going to be Toy. So I'm going on the opposite side here.
You're going with Blagoy?
Absolutely.
Fred, who you going with, Blagoy or Tui?
Tai.
Isn't
that his name?
Tai
Tai
Express?
Tai Tuivasa?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's spelled T-U-I. I thought it was Tui.
Tui. That's just like Tuivasa. Tai.
Tuivasa.
I have it in
Tuivasa. I like the big guy. I like him. I think he's gonna win. I'm going with him. I'm going against Blagoy.
Well, Blagoy is ranked at 13th in
Yeah,
in that
whatever.
division,
I don't care about rankings.
You don't care about rankings?
No, the rankings mean nothing.
Say that to John Jones.
I mean, both of these guys are not very important for the moment.
Well, I believe
Like-
John Jones is ranked number 1. What are you talking about?
Hashtag.
Hashtag what?
Hashtag stars.
Hashtag what, AJ?
Did I say something?
Stop
Don't want any lawyers
stop
calling.
saying hashtag something. all right?
Hashtag
Okay.
picograms.
So, any other fights on this card you guys interested in? We got some good prelims. Aljamain Sterling, Pedro Munoz is a good one. Alexa Grasso taking on Karolina Kowalkiewicz. That's a good fight.
That'll be good.
Look, there's a bunch of names that we know.
Yeah.
Nina Ansaroff, Aljamain Sterling, Ricardo Lamas, Angela Hill, Eddie Wineland. When's the last time we saw
Eddie. I haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah,
He's
exactly. Eddie
interesting, yeah.
Wineland, a bunch of guys that we've seen before. It's a card with some decent names. It's a good card. People should watch it.
Joanne Calderwood opening up the card
If
on the
they can
UFC
watch
Fight
it.
Pass prelims.
Let's be honest, if they can watch it, because last week, I mean, this is on pay-per-view, so
In
it'll be a lot
Canada,
easier.
there's not
But
problems.
last week's Sweden fight was so difficult. I was flipping out on Dave because I'm like, where can I see this fight?
Okay.
I just couldn't see it.
We got to take a short pause here for the radio
AJ's upset.
side. We got to take a short pause here for the radio side on TSN 690. It is Ringside Report. We are live on YouTube every Thursday night on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/ringsidereport.net, youtube.com/ringsidereport.net. we will be back, and we will talk about Alexander Gustafsson. We'll talk about AJ's problems watching the UFC Stockholm fight, and whether or not Gustafsson is actually retired from MMA. Stay with us.
No more IKEA for me.
And we're back. Welcome back. It's Ringside Report. I am Dave Simon. Fred Garcia is here. AJ DeLezio is here. And Marco Muscles is here as well, taking care of business for us behind the scenes. You can listen to this show every Friday night on TSN 690. You can also watch Ringside Report live, the Ringside Report live YouTube show every Thursday night at youtube.com/ringsidereport.net. Every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Always giving you more content on the YouTube show. Go subscribe to the channel. Like the video. Leave a comment. It is much appreciated. And click that little bell so that you'll be notified after you subscribe every time we have a new video posted, be it the video version of Wrestling Uncensored, Dave and Johnny Live every Friday afternoon, and then, of course, Ringside Report live every Thursday night at 8 p.m. And then the post shows, right? There's always post shows for big MMA or WWE
Plus
events.
special content as well, like today, like,
Sure.
interviews, you name it. We do all kinds of stuff.
There's always all kinds of special content. And definitely stay tuned in a little bit on the radio side and on the podcast side for AJ's special interview series that AJ's calling
Meet in the Street.
Meet
episode.
in the Street. AJ's Meet in the Street series. So AJ spoke with a couple of guys that are promoting an event next Thursday. This will be, I have the info here in front of me. This is the Jeux Urbains. There's going to be some Olympic wrestling Thursday on Crescent Street, downtown Montreal, at 7 p.m. Thursday, June 13th, 7 p.m. XP Montreal presenting the Jeux Urbains, the Urban Games, with some Olympic-style wrestling. George St. Pierre, GSP, the man, will be there.
So if you want to see George, be there.
Yeah, if you want to see GSP, maybe get to shake George's hand. And
or kiss him.
maybe you can
He loves
kiss
getting
him.
kissed,
Although
for
I
sure.
don't think we can promote that you'll be able to kiss George.
not?
if
I'm
you
not sure
go.
we're going to get the seats no more. AJ.
Yeah, AJ was promised some free seats,
Not
but
free,
I think now
VIP
that,
seats
yeah,
because
whatever.
we're ringsidereport.net.
So, yeah, leave George alone. You can say hi. You can maybe shake his hand, but kind of, don't bother the guy, right? Don't kiss him, AJ.
Why not?
AJ,
It's Montreal. We're known
AJ's
for
gonna
that.
try and kiss him, and that's not good.
Pucker up, George.
So
Marco,
this
bring
is
the lip balm.
happening Thursday, the 13th of June, 7 p.m. on Crescent Street. Some wrestling will be taking place, and GSP will be there. And in a little bit here on the show,
7 p.m.
7 p.m., 10
10 fights with
matches,
Olympic wrestlers from
and a little bit
around
here
the
on the
world.
show, we'll hear your interview with James Mancini, who's going to be doing the commentary with George, and also
with Jean-François Davio.
one of the organizers,
Well,
right?
Jean-François Davio is the organizer not only of this wrestling event, Urban Montreal. He's also the founder and president of the Montreal Fashion Week. So it's kind of interesting to hear exactly how we tied in fashion with his involvement in wrestling. And it's an awesome story. Muscles, Marco, and myself, we might be there next week. We're pretty sure we probably will be
For AJ's
representing ringsidereport.net.
more meat on the street.
More meat on the street. Don't beat that meat.
Oh, God.
And
So
what
listen,
did you say
There's a
earlier?
bunch of
Something
bad
about
jokes.
it
What'd I
being raw for a better feeling. That's the one.
Okay, let's no. We're gonna keep moving on.
You can't block that, Dave.
So if you want to hear more, just stay tuned, and we'll get to those interviews in a little bit. You'll hear the special AJ interview series on the podcast version and radio version of this show. You'll hear AJ's Meet on the Street.
Meat on the street, exactly.
I think it's just him meeting someone on the street. That's usually what it is, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You
so
meet someone on the street,
could be
and then
random
you talk to
places.
them and record the conversation.
Spell it.
meat.
Spell the meat. How do you spell
Which
them?
one? The beat
No,
the
for,
meat one.
for AJ's Meet on the Street.
What do you want me to spell?
Doesn't matter.
Oh, Ringside
You
Report.
couldn't spell it either way. It's okay, AJ. It's fine. So last week in Stockholm, Sweden.
Oh, we're going to that. Okay.
Alexander Gustafsson. Where do you want me to go?
I thought we were going to go more on the interview. It was so interesting.
No, we're good.
All right.
We'll
You'll hear it later.
Yeah. So Alexander Gustafsson lost to Anthony Smith. He was looking pretty good.
Exactly.
He was losing on the judges' scorecards.
Wow.
No, he was.
Was he? For
Yeah.
real? I find that.
Yeah.
I'm surprised because I thought he was winning the fight.
Yeah, so did I.
If I was judging, I would say Gustafsson was leading. But with that said,
But Fred, how many times does
with that said,
happen?
the other guy finished him. Okay, the other guy finished
That's the
him.
bottom line. You're right.
Anthony Smith, with a nice takedown, managed to advance and get that rear naked choke and finish Gustafsson. Or was it a head and arm choke?
It was a rear naked choke.
It was a rear naked,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
But the thing is that, look, that's what happens. You can't leave it in the hands of the judges. Like I said, I thought it was.
And that's what Anthony Smith did.
He did. And you know what? Well, kind of. But I'm saying I thought Goose had this fight. It was really
Well,
good.
Goose
4
was
rounds of
hoping the
action.
judges would give him the fight. And
Yeah,
Anthony
if he didn't get
Smith went
choked
out
out.
and finished it.
Well, he made a mistake, and it all comes down to that like critical mistake in the fourth. And the thing is that he was tired, and Anthony Smith, and I said it when he fought Jones, he went the distance, and it just goes to show that this guy can go the distance, and he did that with Jones. So that's something to think about. Gus didn't have the stamina, and it caught him.
Gus went the distance with Jones too years ago.
Yeah, years ago. In 2011?
So what's your point?
2019.
But what
it's a different time.
what should we think about a rematch of Smith and Jones? I hope I don't have to
No,
think about that.
I would like to see a rematch. Thank you for mentioning that. I like to see a rematch again of Jones, and Smith, and it's gonna happen at some point. Yes.
Oh, please.
What?
Remember what I said, because right now
I remember how awful that fight was.
Yeah, it was not a good fight.
But it went
I don't
5
wanna
rounds.
see
It
that
wasn't
again.
his greatest fight.
Nope.
He was an embarrassing fight.
Never
So what?
again.
Anthony
Look,
Smith was all close to beating John Jones.
He wasn't close, but he did admit it was an embarrassing fight. It wasn't his best fight, but it did prove one thing, that he can go to distance. And if that wasn't his greatest fight, and he knows he can deliver a lot more, which he did to Gus, it'll be a very different fight. And it's going to happen.
No.
Smith, Jones will happen again.
Okay,
Please,
Can
no.
we please exit the John Jones boring era? Like, I don't want to be in this John Jones, boring fight era, okay? These are the guys who John Jones fought in a row, mind you. These are the gigantic names in MMA. Shogun, Rampage, Lyoto. All these guys have real names, full names that I don't even have to give you because that's how big of a star they are. You know somebody's a big star in MMA when you can say one name and you know exactly what you're talking
Exactly.
about. For example, Khabib, Conor,
GSP.
Okay? Okay, look.
Muscles.
So, Shogun, Rampage, Lyoto, Rashad, Vitor, Chael, Gustafsson, Glover, DC.
Dave Simon.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry. That's the wrong page.
After he fought DC, who did he fight? He fought, okay, and then it dropped off a little bit. OSP, and then he fought DC again. Then he fought Gustafsson, now Anthony Smith, and next he's fighting Thiago Santos. Like, he went from fighting the most exciting names and some of the biggest names in MMA in the history of the game, and now he's fighting these guys like Anthony Smith and Thiago
I mean,
Santos.
there's not a lot of names left for him
well,
to
then
fight.
Yeah, there's
go to
one big
heavyweight.
name.
Go
There's
to
Johnny,
heavyweight.
there's Johnny Walker that's coming. And that's the thing. And I know
He's not a big name.
he's a big name, and
The Licker is a big name, but him as a fighter is not a well-known fighter.
What are you talking about, Dave?
What are you talking about,
Everybody knows
AJ?
about Johnny Walker. And I said that way back when you guys didn't
is
even
that
give me a
John
chance
Jones'
to say.
latest relapse?
No, it's not yet. Not yet. So easy on the Johnny there, Jones.
Johnny
But I'm gonna
Walker and Coke. A cola.
Oh, is that what you meant?
Or maybe not.
That would make a great headline.
Huh. Okay.
Listen.
I just don't want to see John Jones fighting guys like Anthony Smith again. Like, that was not a good fight. And now he's fighting Thiago Santos. I don't want to set up another Anthony Smith fight. Like, good on Anthony Smith. He beat Gustafsson. He's won some fights, but he's going to have to win a few more if he's ever going to get a shot at John Jones again, okay? He's going to have to beat a guy like Johnny Walker if I want to see him fight for a championship again. Simple as that, okay? He beat Gustafsson. Well done, Anthony Smith. Congratulations. Win a few more fights and then come back to me, and maybe John Jones will be there for you. Maybe not. Whatever. That's not my concern.
Yeah, but Dave,
I don't really care about Anthony Smith fighting John Jones again for a title. I care about Alexander Gustafsson, who is a big name in this sport, who just retired at 32 years of age. This guy has now lost 4 of his last 6. He's lost 2 in a row, including his second loss to John Jones for the title, and now a loss to Anthony Smith in his home country of Sweden. So this was a devastating loss and a devastating couple of losses for Gustafsson. He's fought for the title now 3 times, lost 3 times, but he's only 32. He's not even been fighting for that long. I mean, he's been fighting for 12 years as a pro. I mean, that is a while, but he seems good still. He seems sharp, and I'm not buying this retirement whatsoever. Everybody retires in MMA. Nobody means it. BJ Penn's retired 1,000,000 times. He's still fighting. George St. Pierre retired. I don't believe it. I think he's going to fight again. Conor McGregor retired. No one believed it, even though Dana White was like, I wish you well, Conor, in your retirement. And then everybody's like, what? What are you guys talking about? Obviously, Conor's not retired. Who else retired and came back? Like everybody in the history of the sport? Like
So many.
Everybody in Bellator.
Everybody in Bellator has retired and come back 1,000,000 times. Like, no, I'm not buying this Gustafsson retirement. He's not retired. He will be back. Don't believe it.
Well, he's riding on emotions, right? And most fighters,
Of
that's
course,
what happens,
man.
right? It's
Look,
normal.
If
But
I lost in my home country a fight that I felt that I was winning, and then I got caught in a choke, and I had to tap, and it's in front of everybody, and it's right after the John Jones fight that I really wanted to win, I'd be like, man, screw this. I quit. I don't want to do this anymore. But after a vacation, after 6 months, after a year, I might come back and be like, well, I could still make a lot of money doing this. No one is going to pay me more than the UFC is going to pay me to fight. Like, no one is going to pay Alexander Gustafsson over $100,000 in one night to do anything, right?
pretty much.
I mean, I don't know what his skills are. I don't know what his options are, but I can guess that the UFC is his most lucrative option. And if in a year from now they offer him some kind of fight, I'd be surprised that he wouldn't take it. So, you know, great career if it is a career, but it's not a career, Gustafsson. We all know you're going to come back, have some time, take some time with your family, have a nice vacation, but, like, the retirement stuff from MMA fighters in 2019, I'm not buying it anymore. I don't buy retirement. We thought Nate Diaz was retired. He's coming back this summer. He hasn't fought in 3 years. He's coming back this summer. No one's retired.
Yeah, but Diaz is something, like, that's completely different. I mean, this week, Gus is not the only one that retired. I mean, it's been a boatload of people that have retired. You're looking at Nick Hine, Jimmy Manoa, Mohamed Lawal. I mean, everyone's retired.
Did Jimmy Manoa retire after that knockout?
Yep.
Did he wake up?
He woke up.
Okay,
that was
well,
a nasty knockout.
Jimmy Manoa, has lost 4 in a row, including 3 by knockout. Gustafsson didn't get knocked out.
Wait.
Gustafsson looked good in that fight. Manoa was knocked out.
Anybody want to take a bet
seconds.
that Jimmy Manoa fights again? Because I will.
Yeah, probably.
Come on, he's not retired.
But, okay, here's the difference, though. Jimmy Manoa has been knocked out in 3 of his last 4 fights. All 4 of those fights, losses, and he's 39. Like, there's a big difference between 39 and getting knocked out constantly and 32 and getting caught in a choke.
Right.
Like,
no, absolutely.
It's not like Anthony Smith hit Gustafsson, beat him up to the point where Gustafsson couldn't take it anymore, gave up his back, and decided to tap out. This was a matter of Anthony Smith out-positioning him in a grappling sense, being a better grappler. He got a takedown. He
capitalized on it.
And that's it. And he advanced position. He got a rear naked choke, and he proved that he is a, like he said, legit jiu-jitsu black belt.
He's legit.
And, man, he showed some legit skill. He showed that he's a much better wrestler and jiu-jitsu player than Alexander Gustafsson. But for Alexander Gustafsson to quit, like, it's a different situation than Jimmy Manoa, who's getting knocked unconscious. Gustafsson's not getting knocked out. Like, Jones beat him by TKO, but it wasn't a knockout clean. You know, Gustafsson can still take a punch. I don't think Jimmy Manoa can. There's a big difference between being 32 and losing like Gustafsson does and being 39 and getting knocked out.
By a savage knockout. And that's the thing.
Oh, that knockout was
but
disgusting.
Gustafsson...
That head kick, oh my goodness.
It was nasty. I mean, the sound,
Alexander
you can hear that
Racket.
sound.
But Gustafsson has been knocked out in the past, you know, so maybe the retire.
Sure, but
he needs a break.
But he's a younger guy.
That I'll agree on.
But Fred, listen, that knockout, you can hear the shin hitting the face, and I mean they heard it from the top tiers. There's no doubt about it. It was a nasty knockout.
Unbelievable.
And you know what? It's also a psychological thing too, because you got Jimmy that's come into MMA. He was 14-0, and he's lost I think his last 3 out of the last 6 fights, 4 in a row. I mean, it's one thing after another.
How can you lose 3 out of 6 and 4 in a row?
I don't know.
I need you to help me on that math.
His last 4 fights were a loss. I apologize. His last 4 fights were a loss, and that's the thing with a knockout like that. It's not like a choke. You don't have to worry about CT scans on a choke. But you do when you get a knockout. And after so many hits to the head, the concussion game is either do I continue fighting or do I live a very, very short life? And you know what? He's 39 years old. He probably have a career outside of the gym. He can do whatever he wants. And I don't think a knockout like that is enough for you to come back. I think it's time for Poster Boy to put up that poster and to call it hasta luego.
I think sometimes, when you are getting knocked out like that, then I'll be like, okay, I don't really want to see you fight anymore because every time somebody punches you in the face, you fall asleep. I don't want to see that. It's not really like that with Jimmy Manuwa. That kick would have probably put anyone to sleep, but Manuwa's been knocked out so many times now, it gets dangerous.
Exactly.
You don't want to see that. And, yeah.
And that should be something that, the
He's
UFC...
almost 40.
Absolutely.
You don't need to be fighting at 40 years old. It's not a sport for a 40-year-old. It's just not.
Well,
I don't care who you are.
You can say that about Couture, too. I mean, Couture fought in his late 40s, and he fought against Brock.
How did he do that?
He didn't do too bad.
Pre-USADA.
Yeah.
Pre-USADA.
Okay, but you know what?
Get out of here,
come
Couture.
on, Dave. Couture. Randy Couture.
Okay, let me change it then for you, AJ, since you don't get my point once again.
Tell me. Jesus.
In 2019, you should not be a 40-year-old in the UFC.
Ooh, Dave, that's harsh, man. That is really harsh. That is harsh.
It is?
Yeah.
What?
So how do you say that about Romero and all those guys that are still fighting? I mean, let's look at it. Look at DC. All these champions that are 40. Come on, Dave. Let's argue that point. I'll be honest.
Okay, maybe you're right. DC is the exception, I guess. I don't know.
I'm right on Dave.
I mean, Yoel Romero's another
Haley's
good
Comet
example.
coming back.
Yoel Romero. Is he 40?
He's close to it.
Oh, no, he's over. He's 42.
Exactly.
Well, he's a freak. These guys are freaks. It's not fair.
No, Brock is actually 39.
The average 40-year-old should not... I mean, most UFC fighters, when they hit 40, it's time to go. Once in a while, there's going to be a rare exception that can keep on doing it, usually in the heavier weight classes. Yeah, well, how do you think he was doing that?
Well, he was doing good.
He was doing it. But look, you're right,
How do you guys think Yoel's doing it?
Yoel is on a natural
26
substance.
million reasons to not doubt.
Yeah, 27 million.
to not doubt you.
27 million.
So, kids?
Yoel will sue you if you're not careful.
Yeah, exactly. Yoel eats a lot of Captain Crunch and not the cereal
Well, look,
kind.
the guy was taking tainted supplements, you know?
Well, you know what? Look, whatever they do, I mean,
true.
they're getting tested, and if they happen to pass that test, unlike some of the picograms and other fighters, you know what?
Look, Yoel has the drive to continue. So
he does. You're absolutely right, Fred. He does have a drive, and that's the thing. And you know what? It's a different game today as it was, say, 10 years ago. I mean, the fighters have nutritionists, and they have physiotherapists, kineos, they have doctors, they have so many people surrounding them so that their athletic body can go at a longer point in their careers, as opposed to years ago. And we can see that with BJ Penn, and we can see that with some of the older fighters where they just can't handle it today. Today's fighters are better conditioned, so they can go the distance. But you're right. I mean, I don't want to see a fighter.
Come on,
listen to me here. I don't want to see a fighter who gets so many headshots to continue that game. And it's the responsibility of the UFC to look at the amount of knockouts a fighter has had and to say, you know what, it's time for you to hang up your gloves. And that's the thing. And it's important.
That knockout last week of Jimmy Manuwa would have been the biggest knockout of the weekend had that dude, Andy Ruiz Jr., not knocked out Anthony Joshua in one of the craziest boxing matches you will ever see.
But you can't in
Just
boxing.
crazy.
Like in boxing, you can't underestimate him. I mean,
People did not expect Andy Ruiz to win that fight.
No, and he made Big Country look like a poster boy for health. And that's the thing. Ruiz,
Explain what you mean.
Ruiz is a heavy.
Explain what you mean by that Big Country comment. Explain it.
I mean, Ruiz was the fresher man in the 7th round. How much do you want more him to be an athlete?
What are you talking about? You're talking about Big Country Roy Nelson.
Big Country.
You're comparing their physiques.
Exactly.
Because they're both
heavy set. And
they're fat guys.
They're a little Pillsbury boy type
That's
of
fat
bodies.
on them, right? Is it not
It
fat?
is, but the difference with these type of athletes
they're bigger.
They're bigger, but their body types cannot build muscle like George St. Pierre and whatnot. Underneath that,
they're in shape.
Underneath that jello-ish body type, they're full of muscles and they're heavy.
What I saw
athletes.
was
these guys can take
the big jacked guy tired, and the short tubby guy still going, still strong, still throwing heavy punches. Like, he seemed to be in way better shape, and Joshua just seemed unprepared for that fight. Maybe he didn't take Ruiz seriously.
He didn't take him seriously.
And he
That's it.
paid the price. And Anthony Joshua, one of the top heavyweight boxers in the world, he could have fought Tyson Fury. He could have fought Deontay Wilder, but instead he fought Andy Ruiz for less money, and now the Deontay Wilder Tyson Fury
Did
fights,
he fight him for less money? Because from what I read,
money?
He has a contract with DAZN of 100 million pounds, which is like 150 million US dollars.
It's good cha-ching.
Which, I mean, ain't bad.
It ain't bad at all. But
maybe I'm sure he made a lot of money, but you
right now,
gotta imagine that the money.
The worst thing for him is that the only thing for him now is a rematch with Andy Ruiz, and he better win that rematch, because if he ever wants to get that big Wilder or Tyson Fury fight, well, he needs to avenge this loss.
Well, you know what? Kudos to Ruiz. He's like the first heavyweight Mexican champion, and
yeah,
you know what? I give him a lot of credit because
guy was able to take a punch and keep on bugging.
And since he was a kid, this guy was a really good fighter. And in their camp, they knew that they could give it to AJ, and that's the problem. AJ probably didn't take him serious.
Stop calling him AJ.
AJ's the man.
Who's AJ?
AJ wasn't right on that fight.
You mean Andy Ruiz?
Andy Ruiz or Anthony
Joshua.
Anthony Joshua.
I don't even know who you're talking about, because Andy Ruiz Jr.
is AJ Jr.
is
AJ Jr.
Because you call yourself AJ, right?
Exactly.
Why do you call yourself AJ?
Well, of course, I'm Anthony Jr.
Anthony Jr.
Exactly.
So he's Andy Jr., so he could be AJ. But you're referring to Anthony Joshua as AJ.
Exactly.
See, your AJs are very confusing. And also, when you call yourself AJ and you also refer to yourself in the third person very often, when you say AJ, when you're referring to someone else who no one else refers to as AJ, like Anthony Joshua, it can get a little confusing.
Let me tell you something.
AJ.
Let me tell you about AJ Anthony Joshua. You got to remember one thing. He underestimated his opponent. Never, ever underestimate your opponent. And that's the problem. And you know what? He was very humble in his loss, too. So we got to give a lot of credit to Anthony. He was humble. He said he lost fair and square. He was a gentleman about it. And that's what I like him as a boxer.
That's all you ever say. We got to give a lot of credit to Anthony. We got to give a lot of credit to
everybody.
Those
always
Anthonys,
trying to give credit to Anthony.
I don't know what's up with those Anthonys.
Yeah.
St. Anthony.
Andy Ruiz, Anthony Joshua, I guess, is the big rematch to make now in boxing, right?
Well, there's no choice.
You got to see that again.
And
Run it back. Run it back.
It'll happen probably sooner than you think. That'll happen within the next couple of months. I can see this. Sometime in August, we'll see this rematch.
Now, finally, guys, Nate Diaz did an interview this week with ESPN's Ariel Helwani, and he said that the UFC wanted to do a 4-man tournament between Nate Diaz, George St. Pierre, Conor McGregor, and Khabib, where Conor and Khabib were going to fight, and Nate was supposed to fight George, and then the winners of those two fights would fight each other.
Why isn't that happening?
I don't know.
It's not Bellator. That's why it's not
Something
happening.
happened. Maybe George didn't want it. Maybe Nate didn't want it. We don't really know. AJ, you're supposed to see George next week, so maybe you can ask him when you see him.
Yeah, me and George, we're going to
ask him if it's true.
You know what?
And then you can wrangle George and get him in here, which what you've promised.
I got muscles over there. We're going to get him. You get the bag. I got the rope. We're getting George over here.
So you've promised George on the show in the next couple of weeks, right? In the next few weeks, you have promised this to us off the air, and I'm bringing it on the air because, I'm putting you on the spot. I haven't really put you on the spot much on the show, and we're winding down here, we're running out of time, so I have to put you on the spot here once.
You remember a long time ago he promised to have
promised
Drake.
GSP.
No,
you promised Drake too.
And I had put an alert on my Siri in my phone, and I got that alert. And Anthony never got Drake. So.
I said breaks. I didn't say Drakes.
Whoa.
I said I was going to get
so
breaks
you were
over
supposed
here.
to get Drake on the
From
show
Midas.
within a certain amount of time, and that time has elapsed. Weren't you supposed to give us something or do something in
No,
return
I did.
now?
We got Ellis Theodoro. We got Olivier Aubin.
I mean,
and
look,
the Drake thing was a mistake. I meant to say breaks.
Yeah.
But
Look, Drake
Anthony
now-
Joshua was with Drake just before his loss, so maybe we don't
And
want
Drake's
Drake.
like
Yeah.
at all the basketball games, like you would think you'd be able
Let's
to get
go
him here.
Raptors.
I think Khabib actually made a comment on that. He says, Khabib, why don't you... Khabib said, Drake, why don't you start hanging around with Poirier? Because this way here, I guarantee I know I will win. And that's the thing. I mean, I feel bad
good
for
one,
Drake.
Khabib. I mean, good one, Ali Abdelaziz.
Which actually, right now as we speak, Khabib is officially the most highest paid athlete in the UFC. So I don't know what that...
according to his manager.
But you know what?
That AJ is then repeating as fact. You're repeating Ali Abdelaziz's propaganda as fact. Of course, a manager of a UFC fighter is going to be like, my client is the highest paid fighter in the UFC.
I'm
Sign
the
with
greatest
me.
agent.
I'm the greatest manager. Sign with me, and I'll make you the highest paid fighter in the UFC. What are you talking about,
You know what?
AJ?
They made a new contract.
You need to
I know George
decipher fake
no,
news.
No, it's not fake news. Khabib is going to be with the UFC for a while. We're gonna see that George fight at some point. There was talks on that contract,
Yeah.
and I can tell you one thing: Khabib is the most recognized athlete right now. And you know what? I believe.
Okay, we
Aziz.
get it.
I believe
we get
Aziz.
it. You love Khabib. You love Khabib. We understand, AJ. You're super excited about whatever Khabib's doing next. He's supposed to fight in Abu Dhabi in September.
And
his
dad is coming.
It's probably against Dustin Poirier, although, the UFC, you never know.
I think it might happen.
They might throw Conor in there. They might throw Ferguson in there. You never know what the UFC might do. Nate Diaz is supposed to fight Anthony Pettis in August in California, and that's going to be at 170 pounds. Nate also saying that he is done fighting at 155. He'll fight at 170 from now on, and, that's interesting. An interesting move for Nate. He fought at 170 in the past and didn't have that much success. I remember seeing a fight between him and Rory McDonald in Toronto where I just have this image of Nate getting suplexed over and over again. Rory just kind of tossing him over and over above his head. And it seemed like Nate was undersized for 155, but he's an older guy now, so you never know. Maybe he'll do well at 170, but he is fighting Anthony Pettis, who's also not a huge 170 fighter. So I think that makes sense, and I like it for Nate. I like that Nate is coming back.
It's about time.
Hopefully we'll see George and Khabib and everybody back real soon. As for tomorrow, hey, we got Tony Ferguson back. Tony Ferguson back this weekend for UFC 238. And then what do we have next week in the UFC? Nothing. Wow. UFC taking a bit of a break, 1 week off. Then they got the 22nd Korean Zombie against Renato Moicano, a fight night event in South Carolina. Ooh, Ngannou versus Dos Santos, June 29th.
Interesting.
That's a good one. And then UFC 239 will be the next UFC pay-per-view, July 6th.
And
John Jones versus Thiago Santos in the main event. Holly Holm, Amanda Nunes, co-main event. So that's kind of the month ahead for the UFC.
And we got to talk about one thing. Congratulations to Cyril Gane getting to the UFC. We called it. He's coming. Watch out for this guy. Remember this name, Cyril Gane.
He's getting a tough first fight. I forget.
He's getting a tough
who is
first
it?
fight.
Pasao? Something
Yeah,
like
Pasao.
that?
Yeah, exactly.
Sergio Pasao.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, I don't think, this is the guy to watch. So remember that name, Cyril Gane.
Oh, it's a good fight. It's UFC Uruguay. I'm not sure when that is, but first time the UFC's going to Uruguay, I think.
Who is he fighting? Sergio who?
I didn't say Sergio.
No,
I said
no.
Pasao. Google Cyril Gane. That will tell you who he's fighting.
Who is Cyril Gane? Cyril Gane is a former TKO champion, right? A Quebec-based promotion. And now he's going to the UFC. The Bon Gamin, Cyril Gane. I don't know who he's fighting in his first UFC
No,
fight.
I think Fred is right. It's Pasao. They just put out the poster, like, I think it was today or yesterday.
No,
night or
Roger Souza.
Roger Souza. Well,
Oh, no, that was a TKO fight, right?
that was his last fight. Yeah, with
against
Roger
Roger
Souza, where he
Souza?
knocked him out from Brazil.
Cyril Gann UFC fight. I don't know. Cyril Gann, he got signed to the UFC, but I don't know. Like, I didn't see.
I saw the poster. I think
Rafael Pessoa.
Yeah,
that's who he's fighting.
Rafael Pessoa.
Yeah, and he's like he has a good record.
Huh. I don't know him.
Look, whatever it is, keep your eye on this guy.
Rafael Pessoa. All right, and that fight is taking place. UFC Fight Night 156, the 10th of August. All right. So we'll wait to see Cyril Gann August 10th make his UFC debut. Very impressive guy. TKO champion, heavyweight champion, knockout artist, a guy from France, trains with Ngannou, total beast. And we called him last week saying he was UFC ready, and then a couple days later.
No, the next day.
The next day after we said
Same night.
Yeah.
Same night, yeah.
Yeah.
They listened to our
He
show.
was in the
I
UFC
know.
like right away. So
Dana
there it
White,
is.
that's okay. You could give us credit because every time we say something, you call it.
All right, well, we're running short on time here. We got to wrap things up. RingsideReport.net is our website. Follow Freddie on Twitter at FreddieMMA. You can follow AJ at Danny Bruck, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Dave Simon MMA. Go to our YouTube channel, like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Always new content up on the YouTube channel, including this show. If you're just listening to this show, you can now watch this show on the YouTube channel. Every Thursday night at 8 p.m., we go live on YouTube at youtube.com/ringsidereport.net, youtube.com/ringsidereport.net. A big thanks to Marco for helping us out back at TSN 690, and a big thanks to you for listening. For Fred, for AJ, for Marco, I'm Dave, and this has been Ringside Report. And we're still here, guys. We're still on YouTube. This is the Ringside Report post show.
Did you put
little bit of a wrap-up show. I know, AJ, you had problems getting the UFC Stockholm.
It was horrible.
Last weekend, and I wanted to talk about it, but I didn't want to talk about it on the radio portion because we're on TSN radio, and the event wasn't on TSN TV, and you may say some negative things about TSN. So
look,
I wanted to take it off the radio show and do it on the YouTube post show.
No, absolutely. But you can't promote it on TSN 4 and then start showing golf. And that's the problem. I mean,
yeah, what was that? Okay,
it doesn't make sense.
I'm going to say bad things about TSN now.
Not bad things, just
no bad things.
Constructive things.
So, like, they have like 5 TSNs, right? And most of them are playing the same thing. And on UFC.ca, maybe this is a UFC problem. I don't know what it is. But on the UFC website, it said that UFC Stockholm is going to be on TSN 4. Okay, this was from the UFC website. I was like, okay, let me prepare the show. You know, I was preparing our show. I was like, what time is this at? When is this at? And it's like, okay, it starts at 10 a.m. on TSN 4. That's what the UFC official website told me. And then I go at 10 a.m. on TSN 4. I look on the guide, and they're not airing the show at all. They're not airing the UFC. So then I had to go to UFC Fight Pass and watch it there. It's on UFC Fight Pass. So if you subscribe for $10 a month or $8 if you have the yearly package, you can get it. You can watch it. And I watched it, you know, but
look,
I thought it was going to be on TSN. I don't understand.
Look,
UFC and TSN, they have a deal to air a lot of their events, but I guess not this one, which kind of sucks, especially when the UFC had it on their website. Just for me, when I'm on the air and I'm here on shows saying, okay, this is official information from the UFC, I take it to be fact, and I'm repeating it as fact.
and you look bad.
And then people come to me and they're like, hey, it's not on TSN.
Hey,
I
Dave
thought you said
Simon.
it was on TSN, like AJ. And I'm like, well, I don't know. That's what the UFC website said. I guess they were wrong.
But look at it this way too. I mean, I tried to look for it on RDS as well, and usually RDS plays it. They weren't playing it. I was flipping out, but lucky I didn't go to a bar because most of the time with Muscles Marco, we'll go see a fight at a bar. So like a lot of people probably thought the same thing.
1 in the afternoon.
Yeah, but people will still go and to wherever. Let's just say PJ's in the house. But you know what? You'll drive all
You're
the way
drunk
there.
right now, aren't you?
I had a few, but the thing is that look, you're going to drive to a bar, you're going to go out of your way, and then you get there and they can't host a fight. This is not good for the UFC. Like, we were complaining about the US having a hard time, like, seeing these fights. And now in Canada, we can't see these fights. It doesn't make sense. How are you going to grow the popularity of the sport when you can't even have access? And it doesn't make sense. Come on, Dave. It was very frustrating. And I don't like watching it. Fred likes watching it the
growing
day
the
after.
popularity of the sport.
I saw it live.
There's enough UFC shows on TV. You could get
Gus
them.
fighting? Come on. That was like,
Whatever.
let's be honest. Like, I don't know.
It's not a big
it didn't
deal that
jive
it
with
wasn't
me.
on TV. It's just kind of like, oh,
AJ
man,
was mad.
I thought this was going to be on TV. That's not cool. Disappointing.
Yeah, I was going to go to IKEA on Sunday, and I said, you know what? Screw that. No more. That's it. You don't make me watch the fight. I don't buy any IKEA stuff.
What does that have to do with IKEA?
Because it was held in Sweden.
So you're blaming Sweden and, as a byproduct, Swedish company IKEA?
Listen, man, what else do I know from Sweden?
Trade war.
Who else, Marco, from Sweden?
You're confused.
Yeah. Who was his other name?
confused,
The other
AJ.
hockey player.
You want to impose
Mats Naslund.
tariffs?
Mats Naslund. You remember Mats Naslund? You guys don't know that.
I don't know what you're talking
Mark
about.
Muscles knows Mats Naslund. One of the
You
best.
guys got anything else you want to talk about on the post show? You want to wrap things up? The Raptors are up 2-1 in the NBA Finals. That's pretty cool.
Hey.
Fred's excited.
Yeah, Raptors, go. Raptors, go. Raptors, go.
Weren't you for the Warriors like 2 days
No,
ago?
I wasn't going for the Warriors.
AJ's
Come
a
on.
Warriors fan.
No, I'm not. I said, yeah, no, I'm a Raptors fan. But listen, I just wanted to say, is my interview on air at TSN at this point?
At this point, what do you mean?
Like, did you air it? Are you going to air it on YouTube? People want to
You
go.
know that our show airs on
Plays tomorrow.
TSN on
Oh, yeah,
Fridays,
shoot, today's
right?
Thursday. Remember this, kids. One pitcher at a time.
You know, these are questions that I think you should ask me off the air.
Can we ever find
Jean-François-
a real IQ test?
Can we find a
Jean-François.
real? Can we find a real co-host?
What? Yeah? Go ahead. Put out the applications. Listen,
I have
Jean-François
one.
Davio.
His name's Johnny
Hey, listen.
North. He's excellent.
Johnny North. Johnny.
I
in the
think
dark.
Johnny North
Actually,
could-
I feel
Johnny's-
there hasn't been an AJ and Johnny North story in a while.
Yeah, what's up with
Yeah,
that?
we haven't had
Well, we
enough.
couldn't go to Sweden because he was doing a fight of Sweden. We couldn't watch the Swedish fight because he was doing some like wrestling match on Saturday or whatever.
What are you doing tomorrow, AJ?
I'm probably gonna watch the fight with Johnny North.
What fight?
Oh, it's the wrestling
no.
show.
Super Showdown.
Oh, the Super-
tomorrow. I'm talking about Friday afternoon. What are you doing?
Friday. Friday. I'm
You're
working.
busy. All right, you're working.
I'm playing Scrabble on Friday night.
Okay,
I play
well-
Scrabble.
So what, Brock is fighting or not?
Brock is going to be at Super Showdown tomorrow. Yes, he says he's going to cash in his Money in the Bank briefcase on Seth Rollins. So Johnny and I will be live tomorrow at 12:30, right before the Super Showdown, and then we're going to be watching Super Showdown, and then after Super Showdown, you know, you'll be able to catch our recap of the whole event for Wrestling
What time is
Uncensored
that
this
at?
week. Super Showdown?
Yeah.
2:00 in the afternoon.
That early?
It's in Saudi Arabia.
That's the Saudi.
Yes.
Okay, I get it.
So they're in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia tomorrow afternoon at 2.
Well-
But before you watch Super Showdown, as Marco takes a call off the air, you can watch us on Dave and Johnny Live.
And I definitely will because I love coming on your show, putting out the comments. There's a really good wrestling universe that listens to the show. So don't forget, tomorrow at 1 p.m., ringsidereport.net, DOTNET.
No, I just said 12:30.
Did you say you're never on at 12:30? So forget it.
12:45.
Listen to me.
12:45.
Hit there at 1. They'll be on. Dave,
We'll
makeup,
definitely
hair.
be on
it
at
takes
1,
forever.
but we
Oh.
might start before.
I'm always one of those like complaining, like they're not on.
I need to mentally prepare before I start the show.
You got to get that massage from Johnny North. I understand how it works, Dave. Don't worry
That's
about
not
it.
exactly what happens. Fred
No,
knows what I got to do.
Hair and makeup, kids. Remember, only 20 minutes. Dave takes 45. Take a look at his hair. Brad Pitt.
That's just because the
And
blunt
who
is
else,
very
Mark?
big.
Who's that outside? One of our
Hey,
fans.
AJ, let me ask you something.
Tell me.
You ever smoke a joint? You ever smoke weed, AJ? Have you?
No.
You never have
No.
in your life.
I'm a clean athlete
In
like
your
John Jones.
56 years of life, you've never smoked weed.
My what?
Is that real? Hey, Fred, you ever smoked weed?
Of course.
Yeah, me too. You never have? Marco, have you? You tried one time.
Muscles,
in your life.
Marco. Listen, I'm gonna tell you something.
Weird.
If we get George St. Pierre on this feed here,
We'll ask George.
we'll do a blunt all together. Me and George.
You want to smoke weed with George
Well,
on
he's
this
not
show?
fighting anymore. He could.
Wow, that'd be
I don't
massive.
know if I do that. I have to like sign a waiver or something.
Yeah,
Because I get like a little bit wild without.
How do you
any-
know? You've never had it before.
I don't know. What
I don't
is-
think it would make you wild. It might choke
AJ, you
out.
get wild. I mean, you're the crazy guy that goes out in your pajamas and gives a bad name to all of us.
What? Never. Never. I didn't go out with the pajamas, by the way. It was George St. Pierre getup and Khabib as well.
If we have George on the show here, are you gonna dress up like George?
Absolutely, man. There's no way I'm coming. George is coming here. I'm not going to dress up as gorgeous St. Pierre.
Are we actually gonna have George here?
I'm going to try my
Here.
best. I told you,
George
Marco,
St. Pierre here in this studio.
listen, Marco's going to get the bag at Renault Depot. I'm going to get the rope. We're going to bag that guy. He's coming. James Mancini.
You know he can beat
Jean-Francois
you up,
Davio.
right?
Well, George is such a lovely
And he's got
guy.
the money to have you taken care of too.
And he
Hey,
does
man,
have like
listen,
a pretty big
I'm gonna tell you something,
bodyguard.
Dave. My name is AJ. I came from NDG. George knows. Remember, NDG supported George.
I'm also from NDG.
Marco knows. Yeah, but you're from above the tracks. It doesn't count. Marco knows. Muscles knows what I'm talking about. You're a real NDGer when you're below the tracks. BTT, below the tracks.
You're a real NDGer if you're below the tracks. That's the only way
Look
you
at
could
Marco.
be a
Look how
real
he's nodding.
NDGer.
You can't see Marco on video, but Marco, come over here. Come over
No.
here. Come on, Marco.
No.
Get over here.
You know what?
Show's
I
over.
grew up in NDG. I'm a real NDGer, but I don't live there anymore. Okay.
Why not?
And I was born there
Well,
also.
I can't
so.
say where you live because like all your fans will be coming and knocking
Yeah,
on your
let's
door.
not say, okay? We're wrapping up this show before AJ reveals any more personal information. Like that time he put out my phone number on Twitter. AJ.
Not only
Thanks,
your,
everybody,
not your phone
for
number, but your
watching.
email too.
Yeah.
Personal.
So follow us
And
on
Fred,
the
too.
things. You could follow me. You could follow Fred. You could also follow AJ. No way. Jose. No.
No way. Jose. No way. Jose. No.